Well, hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Exceptional Living, where, as you know, our purpose is to inform, to inspire, and to ignite the greatness that lives in you. So, how do we do that? Well, we have amazing guests, thought leaders, innovators, strategists that share life changing concepts, insights, tactical, practical, proven tools and to do what? All to bring credible influence, to distinguish our competency, and to lead to indelible impact. And so, in a world where one is conditioned to fit in, know that you, yes, you, were created to stand out, to be exceptional, unique by design. And I'm so excited for our special guest today, all the way from the beautiful nation of Rwanda, Mr. Hubert Sugira Hategekimana. Hubert, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Hubert,
Hi, everybody.
Yes, I want to do a proper introduction. So,
Yeah,
Hubert,
that was top notch.
that's top notch.
Hubert Sugira Hategekimana is how you pronounce my name.
Oh, thank you so much. I want our audience to know that Hubert was born and raised in Rwanda, East Africa, where he survived the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, which killed more than 1 million people in 100 days. Hubert has lived in Europe and Canada most of his adult life, where he was mentored by the late Dr. Myles Munroe in leadership development. And recently, Hubert returned to Rwanda to build his nation, helping people to have strong and healthy marriages and families, and for persons to discover, to release, and to maximize their potential. And so, Hubert, Exceptional Living, we are so excited to welcome you today. Thank you so much for being a part of our show.
Thank you for having me.
Hubert, I'll ask my guests, what is an exceptional life? But your life, your story is certainly one that is exceptional. Share with us a little bit for our audience about your life, your journey.
As you said, I was born in the 80s in Rwanda, in East Africa, and only when I was 11 years old, that's when all hell got loose on my country, where in one morning people started killing around. It's a long story. For 3 months, 100 days, more than 1 million people were killed by neighbors. So that's mainly how my young life started, but my life does not end there. And fortunately, the life of my country is the history of hope, because only less than 30 years later now, Rwanda is among the top nation in Africa for almost everything. The cleanest country in Africa, the second easiest country to do business. A lot of things happening just because of one thing, leadership. So when people ask me about my life, I say my life have seen the both extreme of leadership, the worst leadership that any nation, any people can experiment, that led to the government organizing the killing of its own people, to see the best kind of leadership restoration, where only less than 30 years, because only leadership changed, the country is raising up and becoming one of the sought after, people coming to learn how things are being done. As you said, after living quite a few years in Europe and in Canada, I decided to go back home to contribute to the amazing raising up of my nation. So in few words, that's what I would say.
Wow. So, Hubert, you talked about having seen some of the worst of leadership and having seen some of the best of leadership. And I know you and I shared a mentor, Dr. Myles Munroe, and
Yes.
you talk about his impact on your life, first individually, right? As a leader, what are some of the things that he shared with you about?
Now, when I met Dr. Munroe, one of the things I did not want anyone to talk about was genocide. And when he heard my story, he started saying, whoa, wait a minute. It's what you survive that gives you a right to be heard. So he started, putting me in the front and started talking about the genocide. Then that's when he explained, he helped me to understand that there is no crisis in anyone's life. It all depends on how you see them, how you see things. So he started explaining to me that what happened to you and your people can be used to build other people, other nations. That's why personally, meeting Dr. Munroe really shaped me into a man I'm today, because I understood what we went through was to help other people, not.
Oh, you disappeared on us, Hubert, your image. Okay. There we go. There you are. Keep going.
Yes.
Keep going. And we'll,
So my encounter with Dr. Munroe helped me to understand that life is not, may not be a line. It may have, ups and downs, but all those things are working together to shape you as a people, as a person, and as a people into what God wants you to do with your life as a nation or as an individual. So he helped me to understand that anything that I went through was for this time as this.
Hubert, that's so good that it is your trials, your tests, and he would share this, right? What you survive.
Yes.
Don't follow someone who hasn't been tested, who hasn't been through the disappointments and setbacks.
Yes.
Not to say that you follow them but also the second part to that you shared, that you survived it. Because sometimes we think our scars, or I don't want anybody to see my scars, right? But your scars show what you've overcome, that you're still here, how you perceive it.
That's the key. That's the word I was trying to find. He helped me to love my scars, because that's what you went through and survived.
Absolutely.
And that's what he used to say. It's what you survive that gives you a right to be heard.
Yes.
So thank you for bringing that word out. I was trying to find the right word to.
No, you didn't. And it's, I think too is an exceptional life. I remember I was at a meeting and heard someone say, people always post on social media, and I know you're very much gifted in technology, and I know we would travel at times that I was with you on some of the trips with Dr. Munroe. You were like, oh, we're gonna stream this, you're like doing this live, and we're kind of like, Hubert, what are you doing? And you'd say, I got this, man, and you're like, you're on it, and just your passion for that. But I say that to say that we often post the best of us, right? The best of our lives. We want people to see our lives as, but it's the blooper reel. It's the outtakes of our lives that we really learn the most from, because life, it actually gives you the test first and the experience afterwards, right? Really live your life. You kind of live life backwards, Hubert. Sometimes, I think out loud. It's almost like you're living your life backwards, but you're progressing forward. And I say that because what you've been through and survived, you only did that because your life was there, but you're still moving forward into purpose and in the impact and influence that you're having there in Rwanda. And speaking of that, I know you're an entrepreneur, you're a mentor, you're a coach, so many things. Like, how did you begin this journey into entrepreneurship, into coaching, mentoring, and what are some of your influences? And
again, observing and learning from Dr. Munroe, seeing his life up close, helped me to understand how he juggled so many things. He was a lot of things. He had many hats, and still at the end of the day, he was that same human being who was accessible to people. Observing and learning from him mainly is really what shaped me into the man I'm today.
Wow. Hubert, I was thinking, I remember, and you traveled with Dr. Munroe, but one of these trips we were on, it was early breakfast, business, because some people didn't know that side of him, and that also leads really, Hubert, into what I was asking you about. How are you an entrepreneur, mentor, and coach? Because it's multifaceted. I mean, we're multifaceted over, 700 abilities we've been given. Dr. Monroe was a singer. He was a songwriter. He was an artist. He was a minister, pastor, businessman, coach, mentor, all these things. But sometimes people only saw him in one category. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but he was also father.
He
And,
was an amazing one.
son, right? He was biological father to Myles Jr. and Teresa, but also spiritual father and mentor to many, many, including
Mm-hmm.
us. And he had this ability again, early morning business breakfast, in the afternoon meeting with leaders and heads of state. And then in the evenings, he would be at a church service, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
some type of assembly. And to see him still true in purpose, still knowing, who he was, be able
Mm-hmm.
to go in and out of these different rooms, sit at different tables, and have this wisdom, but knowledge as well, right, Hubert? Because you
Mm-hmm.
have a little bit of knowledge. Uh,
True.
when you go into the room, it's like when Joseph was called up, he had a gift to interpret dreams. But then
Absolutely.
Pharaoh turned to him and said, "Okay, you've interpreted. Now, what do we need to do?"
What do we do? Yes.
I mean, you went back to Rwanda. When I met you, were in Canada, and we meet in the Bahamas. Yes, all of you be jealous right now. Um, you go back into Rwanda, and you're going back with your experience, but you also had some knowledge that you brought back,
Mhm.
invited to tables. Share a little bit about some of the things that you've been working with or on, as you're able to disclose some of those things. Just
As you were saying, technology being one of the things that I really loved getting involved into, started with a multimedia company, doing, like you said, live streaming of events, setting things, those kind of things up. But on the other hand, helping businesses, to set up, to build their capacity, helping them to build their structures, because we know everything rise and fall on leadership, but everything stands on the process, structures they have, building all of those things. But mainly now, as I said, I'm focusing on helping marriages, because I realized as much as I can help individuals, when they do not marry right, everything they have been building is going to be destroyed, because your marriage will either make you or break you. So I'm bringing all of this thing back to the foundational set, that is the family. I want to help people to build things that are going to be sustainable in the next generation. And there is no way you can build things that will outlive your life if you're not building it from the family setting.
mm,
So that's a kind of a turn I'm taking now, because I've been helping businesses, coming into an organization, trying to help with the structure. I believe things are built on, your product, your process, and your people. So I was trying to help organizations on those three. Product that comes with what is your mission, what are you supposed to be doing, what is your ideal client, all of those basic stuff. Then do you have processes? What is the structure you have in place that is going to help you to achieve what you want to achieve? And what about your people? Who are these people who are helping you to do what you have to do? Training, all of that. Then I come to realize a lot of people doing things that are not going to be sustainable in the next generation, because you have this amazing man who is building this multi-million dollar company. But when you talk, when you discussing, you scratch a little bit, you see they're having issues with their marriages. And in my head, I'm like, that woman, that man you are married to is the one who's supposed to multiply everything you have. A woman is not built to just multiply sperms to bring out a baby. She's built to multiply ideas. And I was like, these people are not really maximizing their potential, because their marriages are not strong, or they are not acting as they are supposed to act. So that's how I decided, if I want really to help build my nation a strong, and maybe use my people as a prototype for God, then I have to start from the basics, the foundation, marriages.
Mm. That's so good, Hubert. The foundation. I know Dr. Munroe would share about, where the family is the foundation to society, right? Our communities
Yes.
are made up of families. And whenever a house is considered unlivable, they will put the sign, if the foundation is cracked, it's unlivable. So, if a wall comes in, they say we can fix the wall, but if the foundation, then the whole house. And so what you're sharing with us is that family is the foundation of our community.
You're
And
talking about exceptional living.
yeah.
Exceptional living start by exceptionally live your life from your family. If you are married, that's where it starts. It does not. You do not have to be married to live exceptionally. But if you are married, exceptional living will start by having an exceptional marriage.
Yeah.
Then anything else you can touch will turn into gold.
Will turn into gold. That's another discussion about the gold here. But let's talk about that. You're talking about family, and there's maybe single persons who are watching, right? Because before you have this marriage, just a strong foundation, it starts off with two individuals.
Absolutely.
That come together. And there could be other, areas, Hubert, maybe someone, spouse passed, or they're separated or divorced. How important is it for the individuals in the marriage? Like, where does the individual fit in their journey to togetherness, or what happens when they're no longer together? How do you manage?
Matter of fact, a strong marriage starts with amazing individuals. There is no marriage, because marriage is like an omelette. It's as good as the eggs that compose the omelette. If you have a million nice, amazing omelets and you only add one rotten egg, the whole omelette is done. So we cannot talk about marriage. Even if I talk about marriage, I really focus on individuals. Because, as I said again, marriage is not the ultimate goal of life. Becoming alone. Matter of fact, for those who believe in God of the Bible, God said it's not good for man to be alone. Being alone is not being lonely. It's being all in one. So for you to have a sustainable marriage, even to be able to think about marriage, you have to be amazingly all in one. You have to be whole. You have to have found your own life purpose. You have to have found and healed from your past, dealt with everything you have to deal with before you can join someone else who is supposed to have done that on his or her side to be able to build a marriage that is going to be the foundation of a nation. So it all comes back to individuals, because, as you said, some people are not married. By the way, even if I talk about marriage, I always tell people, marriage is not a reward. Marriage is not a trophy. Marriage is not the ultimate goal of life. The ultimate goal of life is you to discover why you were born, the purpose of your life. What is your life assignment? The minute you discover it, some of the people will discover that for me to be able to fulfill my personal life, my personal assignment in life, I need someone else. Some other people are strong enough to be able to carry their purpose by themselves. That includes Jesus and Paul, the apostle. They were very strong. Matter of fact, do not say I say this, but those who need marriage are not the strongest. The strongest people do not need to get married.
Wow.
So that I kind of bring in the balance, because when people like me who talk about marriage, sometimes we get overexcited and we make people feel like if you're not married, you're missing out. Not necessary. Because God said it was not good for Adam to be all in one because of the assignment to multiply the seed. It was according to his purpose, his assignment. Everything was good until God said, go and multiply and fill the earth. And he said, whoa, wait a minute. I do not want that to happen all by yourself. So marriage is founded on the need of your purpose.
Yes, because Adam did not have a womb.
No.
And there needed to be a womb. And he couldn't have that.
Absolutely. So some of the strongest people do not really need marriage.
Mm.
You will know by your internal design. So I want to tell people who are listening to the sound of my voice who are not married, do not feel pressure to get married. If you want to get married, nice and well, we will do everything we can to help you to have a wonderful marriage. It's possible. But if you do not feel like this is the moment, then go ahead and be exceptional in your life. Bring in, by the way, you can do more and be a little more free when you are not married because it's all about you. But if you feel like you have to get married, it's a good thing too. So it depends on your life assignment, your calling, and what is within you that will either make you need to get married or not. But the one thing that does not change is you have to find your life before you even think about bringing in someone else.
Yes. Yes, yes. You have to find yourself.
Absolutely.
And be secure in yourself, not to the exclusion. And to your point, Hubert, you were talking about Christ and Paul. They were not, but they also had community.
Absolutely.
That supported them, right? There was 12 disciples. We know what happened to the one. Paul, setting aside Barnabas and Timothy. So there was community even with the mission. So what you're saying today is even if you're not married, you can still have community, which really is made up of family. Sometimes I call it families. People ask me, well, you travel sometimes. I was like, well, no, they're not my blood family, but they're like my heart and spirit family. They may be friends, family. And so for those who are watching who are not, you can still have a community around you that support you, that help you and aid you. And Hubert, you were blessed with Jennifer and a beautiful, beautiful soul inside and out. As you know this, you're like, I found her, I got favor. And a beautiful family, kids there. But I think that that's encouraging, for persons who are not at the present married. And then also, if someone desires to, and that's in their heart, God will give us the desires of our heart. But I think as you're sharing, don't let it be the sole desire to where you leave all things else and what God has purposed for you in your life. Go into the field, as I say that, right? I told a woman, Boaz saw Ruth because she was in the field gleaning. Sometimes you want to be on the sidelines and waiting for him to see you, but you need to be when she was in what God was purposing as part of her journey and into the legacy of Christ. She was active, waiting is not a passive thing. In the Bible, to occupy, that's not just to sit here and take up space. It is to be productive, to discover purpose, to release purpose, to maximize purpose, to the leadership gift. And when she was that, he turned and said, who is this woman who is gleaning in my field? So I hope that encourages someone that you got to go to the field, Hubert. And working. I mean, for a man who's supposed to find his good thing, he certainly doesn't want to find someone who's not working or industrious or sure of who she is. And that's, Proverbs 31. We could go into all that, but for the sake of this, that might be a part 2, Hubert.
Already? Yeah, you already thinking about part 2? Let's finish this one first.
This one first. But Hubert, the reality of it is, everyone at some point in their life has had a setback or some type of disappointment, right? Something you expected to happen, it didn't happen. Maybe you gave it all your efforts, you invested in it, and it just went. What would you say to persons who may even now at this moment be in that place? What would you say to them?
Now, that's a very dangerous question, because people who are feeling in that moment, they are very fragile right now because they think everything is done, they have done all their best, everything is falling apart. I'm saying it's a very fragile situation because I'm aware I've been to that same place many times. But this is what I have come to realize. There is nothing now. I have a very strong belief in God. That's what sustains my life. So I'm talking or I'm speaking from who I am. I've come to realize, and everything that happened to my life throughout my life, that there is no one single day that God was not involved in everything that was happening to me. The time I discovered God is more interested in me being successful than I will ever be. I realized there is never a setback. There is only a setup. When you have tried everything and you have done your best and you think that things are falling apart, do not die there. Keep going, because God has set you up for more, better than you ever thought. I have seen this so many times. When I moved back home 5 years ago, I tried so many things. Did not understand. Most of what I tried did not go how I planned it, until I started understanding that God was putting me into something greater, where now I'm like, oh man, I'm happy this one did not go as I planned, because it was going to be very hard for me to be able to leave that place. So all I'm saying is, life happens and so many things are out of our control. Do your best and believe God that He has the best for you. Many times, what we have not thought, the Bible says, things that did not even come in our minds is what God has prepared. And the way to bring or to connect us to those things that cannot come into our minds is by set-ups that comes clothes in setbacks. That's how I see it.
I like that. So it goes back to perception that we talked about earlier, right? How you see what's happening in your life. So if you perceive what others say is a setback as a setup for God, I love it, right? And I know, like me, you're a person of faith, and God certainly been an anchor in every situation, right? Whether it's the good times when we're excited, and then the times that maybe we are disappointed. But if we look at what, again, the world may say is a setback as a setup, for where God is taking us, right? And it's learning. We learn and grow. So even something we start that didn't go the way we planned, we learn something from it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And many times what happens to us is we are so, this is how God created us. We are so focused on what we want that sometimes we overlook things that are very important. And I always tell people, differentiate what is urgent with what is important. Because many times what we thinking is a setback is God is saying, no, that is urgent. I want you to focus on what is important. And He will, orchestrate things that when you do not pay attention, you will start being mad at people, saying people have forgotten me. For those who read the Bible, remember the story of Joseph. Joseph did well to a guy. And for most of people, they will think this guy, and Joseph told him, he said, oh, when you get back to the king, talk for me. Because he was in prison in the wrong way. He was, firstly accused to try to rape a woman. And then he did well to a man and say, oh, when you get there, do not forget me. Guess what? The man went and forgot him. You see, that day, the guy was going to talk for Joseph. All the king could have done was to say, oh, this guy is wrongly accused, release him from prison. Now, the problem was, for those who read the Bible, it's found in the book of Genesis, maybe chapter 19, if I'm not mistaken, but it's the story of Joseph in Egypt. So the problem was, if Joseph was going to be released that day, the guy Potiphar, who did put him in prison, was the chief guard of the king's army. You see, those who are the bodyguards, the Secret Service for the United States people, the chief of the Secret Service, if you are released, even if the king have said you are free, if the chief of the Secret Service is after you, you're in trouble. So God made that setback. Joseph was forgotten for a purpose because there was some events that needed to happen. Then the king said, I could not sleep. I have a dream. Now it was no longer a favor to Joseph. Joseph now was needed. I said it was a setup because God was setting Joseph up not to be released from the prison, but to become the number 2 in the nation. Because the king, when he released him out of his need. Again, your purpose is always going to be what people need, what you're carrying that people desperately are looking for. When they see what you're bringing, and God has set you up for that, it's no longer people have pity. It's now people need you. And the difference is huge. I do not want people to feel sorry for me. I want people to bring me in because they're like, in this world, nobody can help us as you can do. So I always say that was a set up for God. But Joseph thought it was set back. He was like, I did well to someone and he forgot me. Wait a minute. God was like, no, I do not want you to be released from the prison. I want you, the day you are released from the prison, that you go and you above Potiphar. If Joseph was released like a week before, he was going to have to deal with Potiphar outside. you know? He will have to hide the rest of his life. But now Potiphar will come and bow.
Wow.
Because the king said, only my kingdom, my crown will put me above Joseph. That means Potiphar was now in charge to protect Joseph.
Ooh.
That's what I call setup.
Ooh, Hubert, that's so good.
You feel that?
Yeah, I feel that. It because it's about timing.
It's about timing.
So many times we have in our minds our own timeline. When I'm this age, I'm going to have this. When I'm this age, I'm going to, and to the point, right? You know, Proverbs talks about in the scripture, the reference that Hubert's talking about for those who are watching is found in Genesis 39 when Joseph goes in a few chapters before Joseph's story, which leads to it. But it is, you know, we many of the plans of a man. One of Dr. Rose's favorites, Proverbs 19:21. But it's God who orders the steps. Joseph certainly didn't plan to be in prison. You know, he was doing well in his house. But then there was a situation that occurred.
I like that. The situation
that occurred with his wife. And he had a choice to make. And that's the other thing too. Hubert, you know, our choices. So I look at it like our journeys, it does have a timeline, right? In a way that here in the earth realm, there is time. There's seconds and minutes, hours, days, years, decades, etc. So we're on this infinite timeline. And at a certain time, Hubert's born. At a certain time, April's born. At a certain time, you're watching you're born. Significant to the time of your birth. Significant to everything that happened. And from that, we learn to plan our lives. And so we say, by this age, I'm going to do this. I'm going to have this. I'm going to be married. Hubert, you know, I'm going to have 2 kids. I'm going to do this. And Joseph probably had all that in his mind somewhere along the line. But something happened, wasn't prepared for, but he had to rely on who he was inside. And Hubert, you talked about this, the foundation of who he was, his belief. And in that moment, he had to make a decision of his conviction, or his preference to be with this, you know, because we can imagine Potiphar probably had a very attractive wife, right? I mean,
my goodness. Because this is what you have to understand. I'm jumping in there. Joseph did not say, no, I don't like you. He said, like, no, I cannot sin against my God. It was like, you know, that's the thing. He was very attractive.
Yeah, he was. But the timing, like you said, he couldn't get out of prison in 2 years or 3 years because he would have missed the divine intervention of God at the moment when servants to the Pharaoh were coming. Joseph couldn't have known that. And in our lives, it's like that, right, Hubert? We don't see all ahead. It's like God shows us where we will be, but in between, we have to trust in
He
Him.
does not show, because if he had showed Joseph, you go, because remember, Joseph had his life planned. He have seen the dream. He have seen, remember, by the way, what took him into all of this trouble was because he had planned his life, have seen the end of his life. And he shared with his brothers. Then they were like, let's kill this man, at the beginning, to see what will happen with the vision. So God started telling me, everything coming to you is not about you. It's about because of your vision.
That's a good
because
one.
of your purpose. It has nothing to do with you personally, because people are not people. The system is after your vision. And God said, I'm going to use all of that to fulfill that same vision you have.
Absolutely.
So that's why I do not see anything in my life as a setback. At least every time things happen, I'm like, okay, I cry a little bit, just to not sound like I'm not human. I goes through my depression time. That's normal. Just do not dwell there. Have your pity party for a moment, and then wake up and chuck off, and you're like, let's go back to work. It's normal. So for someone who's feeling down, feeling depressed, feeling that the world is falling apart, feeling that there is no way you will ever see the light again, I'm here to tell you, as long as there is air coming in and air coming out, there is always a moment. And I like, for those who read the Bible, believe in the God of the Bible, there is always a word I like in the Bible. This word is suddenly. So many times in the Bible, you see, out of nothing, suddenly. That morning, remember, Joseph slept in the prison. Woke up, brushed his teeth, went after his everyday prisoner life. But he did not know that night, when he was turning around saying, this man forgot me, the king on the other side of the city in the palace couldn't sleep. And only Joseph had the answer. So I'm telling you, while you are depressed, crying, there is someone who is crying for what you're carrying. But because it's not time yet, because everything have not aligned yet, you better be prepared, because when it's short time, this is it. Preparation, meeting the opportunity, success is inevitable. So as you're still down there, wake up, shock you off, and get prepared. Prepare for what you believe in God for, because the moment is coming. And if you are not prepared enough, you see, Joseph, I'm not sure why we're talking about Joseph, but let's use Joseph. You know why, in honor to your dad. Joseph did not become the king because he explained the dream. He became a king because he told them how to revamp the economy. Everything he have learned while taking care of Potiphar's businesses. Remember, Joseph back home, he was doing nothing. He did not understand how agriculture worked. He did not understand how cattle keeping works. He understood nothing. God had to take him out of his house because it's only explaining economically how you're going to turn around agriculture, how you're going to put aside 20% is going to save you for the rest of your life. All of those things is what, because the king said, oh, you have explained the dream. Now we need to find someone to do it. You see, it's him being skilled in doing things that made him become the king. Oh, Joseph said, oh, it's very simple. This is ABC. This is what you have to do. Joseph was putting himself out of the picture. It was find someone who will do ABC.
Mhm.
You see, he was not even trying, this time he was not even trying to speak for himself. Remember, back in the days, he was telling people to go to speak for him. He's in front of the guy. He's no longer even trying to speak for him. He's now interested in giving a solution. It's no longer about him. It's now, I want to help you. Find someone, I will tell him what to do, and you go and run with it. The king was there sitting there. And guess what? Potiphar was around. Because you have to understand, everywhere the king was, the chief of secret service had to be there.
Yeah.
So in this, then the king asked everyone, he said, will we find anyone who is as wise as this man? Potiphar was there, was like, no. He's among the ones who voted for Joseph to become the king. All I'm saying is, in your downtime, prepare yourself. Refine your skills. And I know I'm probably talking to someone who's like, in my church, they do not recognize my gift. They did not recognize, you do not recognize what I have. I'm like, God is making sure they don't, because you haven't refined yourself enough. And the problem with refinement is when opportunity shows up and you're not prepared 100%, the opportunity will never come back. If Joseph had that opportunity and he did not know how to revamp their economy, because it was economic crisis, he knew what to do to turn around 7 years of wilderness. He knew how to turn around 7 years of needs, or to turn 7 years of prosperity, to cover for the time where they will have famine. It's because he understood how to do it. He could have explained the dream, but did not have the skill to turn around the things. He was going to be released. Probably he was going to be rewarded, but his vision and dream to become a king was not going to be materialized. So as I'm speaking to you, please do not die in your down moment. Prepare. Because when the time comes, and let me tell you, you will forget in one day the cries you had for 11 years. Wow. The same day, Joseph was out of prison, got married, had a ring, everything in one day. I was like, this is crazy. So that's what happens when you prepare yourself, when you are in your down moment.
That's a suddenly, Hubert.
Suddenly.
You talked about suddenlies earlier, and it's all about timing. To everything, there's a season, there's a timing. And absolutely. To your point, when you were talking about when Joseph, he was in prison saying, talk for me. When he got to the dream interpretation of the Pharaoh, he said, I don't have this. God gave this to me. You see? And that was the dream reveal. But as you said, his work in Potiphar's house, because the Bible says that Potiphar's house increased because of Joseph. Also probably got the attention of Potiphar's wife, right? The successful, young, attractive man, that it increased. So he was honing his skills, developing his skills in stewardship. So that he took that and was then able to scale it. We talk about scaling. I'm sure in your coaching with business, have a great idea, but it comes to a point where you want to expand. You have to know how to scale the business for growth.
Absolutely.
For your processes and people, and even the product, right? So those 3 Ps you were talking about earlier. But just being prepared. Don't look at this time as, well, nothing's happening. People aren't traveling so much. Some people did during, the past 2.5 years, 3 years. They're like, this is a long vacation, right?
It is.
Yeah. Others are like, well, let me go back and let me learn. Let me look at something to invest in online. It gave access to a lot of information. A lot of innovation came about from reading courses. And
in that period, that's when we started our online and live streaming business, because people could not meet, funerals, all of these great events happening, the government needing to meet people, they couldn't go physically. It was a time for us, it was a setup.
Yeah.
Yes. That's when one of the visions I always had actually made sense. Because I wanted to build a digital church.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to build a system that can host, speakers, all of these things we're doing. And when that pandemic started, I said, oh, now it makes sense. When everybody's crying, I was like, okay, let me try to understand. Because there is no setback.
Mm-hmm.
What is God setting me up for?
Yes.
That's the mindset I have.
Mm-hmm.
That's what helps me to kind of seeing in the chaos and craziness. I'm like, okay, so let me keep quiet and see what is the setup here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing to see that always God will show you and you'll be like, man. And when you started getting excited, then God started opening. Let me tell someone who's listening to me, who feel like, oh, Hubert, you don't know what I'm going through. My life is a mess. There is nothing I can do. Let me tell you, there is always one small thing you can do. Find that thing, the smallest thing you have access to. You want to build a multi-million business, but you're like, no, I have no. Find someone in your neighborhood who's doing almost the same thing you want to do and go and volunteer. Go and give your time there. Find something that is almost or has some connections to do with what you're believing for, you think you cannot do. Find at least one thing you do. The moment you step in, God is going to open a little bit, a little bit, a little bit until before you know it. Because you have to understand, when we still using Joseph's story, Joseph was sold to Potiphar as a slave. Once he get there, he did not have a mindset of slave and started slavery is you serving someone at the expense of your life. If Joseph thought in his mind he was a slave, he was going to take advantage of Potiphar's wife. Because we think, oh, I have my reward. No, he was like, no, I cannot do that to my master. The mindset he had was, oh, I'm being oppressed here. No, he was like, I'm learning something here. And he was right, because what he learned from Potiphar's house is actually what made him to be able to explain to the king how to turn agriculture. So find something you can do, you are allowed to do, you have access to do, and focus on that. I'm telling you, you will not maximize that opportunity until God have opened your way and gave you what you have been believing for. But the mistake a lot of people make is when what they're believing for, the big thing, the big breakthrough they are believing for is not coming, they sit down and wait. No. Find something to do. God will only find people who are busy.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen many people God have found just sleeping in their houses. Even Samuel, he was sleeping, but in the temple. He was on the guard. He was not just sleeping for the sake of sleeping. So be busy. Get busy doing anything you can find in that is connected to what you're believing for. Before you understand what is happening, God is going to set you up. And this time, because you have been preparing for this moment, you will seize the moment and run with it. And when you do that, I will definitely see you at the top.
Wow. Seize the moment that you're in. Seek to
Absolutely.
serve, to put your
Absolutely.
hands. God blesses the work of our hands. And so
Absolutely.
as we close out this session of exceptional living, Hubert, you have given us so much to remember, so much to remember, and so much, as I said in the open, practical things to apply to our lives that are tested and proven, that are transformative, right? Trans-new migration that is able to change completely what is at hand. And so I would ask you, as we close, what would the man you are today say to the boy you were?
I would say, keep believing. Believe in the dark what God told you in the light. Because the suddenly effect of God will change a 10-year situation in one day. Keep believing. Prepare yourself for what you hoping and trusting God for. Because the opportunity will show up, and if you are not prepared enough, you will miss the opportunity. The young myself, I would tell him, prepare more than you did.
Prepare and believe. And Hubert, I think you will concur that it is our faith that frames, our ideology, how we think, how we believe. It is our faith that really keeps us going.
Absolutely.
And again, our anchor is rooted because Scripture says to us that all things work together for the good, for those who are called according to His purpose. So no matter what happens, keep believing, prepare yourself, work, be humble, be coachable, be teachable, be persevering, all these things. And you'll survive, but even more importantly, you'll thrive.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Hubert, for being a part of our show today. Thank you for the work that you're doing, not just in Rwanda, but I know it's having impact around the world. Thank you for following your God-given purpose.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, to share. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
God bless you and your family. Certainly give our love to Jennifer and your legacy builders. Your legacy builders.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Say hi to everybody, and may what you're believing for comes sooner than you believe.
Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have just heard from Hubert Sugira Hategekimana, sharing some just very sage insights with us. Want to remind you to please like and share this broadcast on our YouTube channel, and stay tuned for more amazing persons who will be sharing with us key insights, tactics, and just wisdom from life, wisdom from above that they have walked out in their lives. So on behalf of Exceptional Living, I want to thank you for being a part and reminding you that you were created to live an exceptional life, unique by design. God bless you.